she'll take over when she gets here.
Okay. Well, it's 7:02, and I'd like to call the Planning Commission to order. Can you take roll?
Oscar?
Yes, sir.
Luke?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Richard?
Here. And approval of the agenda. I wanted to add one thing to new business. Basically, whether the city can initiate a zoning change. Do I hear a motion to approve with that change?
I so move. Second.
A motion by Oscar, second by Mark, to approve the agenda with the addition of the new business, whether the city can initiate a zoning change.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes. Anybody have a chance to read them? I guess I don't see a copy of them, but I saw one there.
I so move.
Second.
Motion by Oscar, second by Luke to approve the minutes as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Commission membership. Dustin, you wanna take that one?
Yeah,
So, yeah, go ahead.
Luke Carter and Mark Bradbury have been reappointed by the mayor and city council. Congratulations on that. And then I believe now is the time to, for Hats to come in and vote on a chairperson.
You did a
Anybody?
phenomenal job.
I nominate Richard.
I second it. I'll third it. As long as Richard's all right with it.
Yeah, that's fine. Luke, you're the co-chair. Nominate Luke for co-chair.
Sounds excellent.
Okay.
Okay. So nomination for Richard Wolf for chair and co-chair, or vice chair would be Luke. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Anybody here for a public forum?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, we're
John Wright.
open to public forum. Go ahead.
Okay, well, Bob Jansen is, my colleague, along with, the 69th and Oliver project that we've been, championing for the last 4, 5, 6 months that we've been trying to get started at 69th and Oliver. It's a 196 unit housing development, and, we just met with the newest of city administrator, and he was gonna touch base with city council, and that's what tonight's purpose was, to see basically if we're gonna move forward with the project or if the city's gonna buy in. Because we're at the same situation that we have been for several months. DEC wants us to commit to $56,000 worth of paperwork before the city wants to commit to the project. And we're not prepared at this moment without some type of handshake agreement with the city that we can sit down with the city planner and start talking numbers or sewage issues, or if you guys can service our gas and water needs. So basically, we just want to know from the city's perspective, can we become a working viable partner, or do we need to look at different avenues?
Okay, so are you just giving us a heads up? Cause I mean, we, as planning commission, I'm sure we would, you know, look at, you need a zoning change and stuff, and, you know, I mean, I don't see,
Well, the
Where-
property's been annexed by the city already.
okay,
We have a preliminary plot plan
It-
that we've already presented several times, but we've run into the concept that nobody actually had the authority to talk to us about numbers, timeline, or anything besides this forum right here. And it's, we were hoping to start building by next March or April, and that deadline is not viable at the moment.
okay. Cause, you know, we can't speak for the city, and we would, you know, handle any zoning changes and that kind of stuff with a recommendation, but, I don't know, Dustin, can you speak to any of this?
We have met with, Mr. John and, Bob several times. I can't do anything without paperwork being submitted on my end, otherwise it's just meetings between two parties. And I don't know if the new city administrator, Matt Ginsby, has discussed anything with either Bob or John, but, on my end, I need actual paperwork submitted and not just an idea brought to me.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We would need Dustin to bring it to the plan commission for approval of zoning or whatever. I assume it's agricultural right now.
Yeah, it's 80 acres soybeans, so.
It's right on the west, northwest corner.
Yeah.
69th and out.
But I guess what you're saying is you've gotta pay 56K to
The
submit that.
PEC,
to
they
submit
want
that
their
paperwork.
part of the, engineering before they wanna submit it to the city of Kechi. We did not wanna use PEC, we wanna use Garver, who we normally use Garver on everything else. They're just a little easier to work with, and they're a lot cheaper. But as far as the city deal, I'm just trying to figure out the process so that I've met with him and the new city administrator, and tonight's moment was hopefully gonna be with him, but he's not here. Because the answer or the question I'm proposing to you right now is one that I asked him 2 weeks ago. If we could have a meet and greet and actually sit down and talk about numbers and, see maybe abatements on taxes so that we can get our, development up and running, or where we need to go from there, because we're, like I said, we're 4-5 months out.
Yeah, you know, I think we support it, but there's nothing that we can, you know, we wouldn't be involved in approval of the, tax abatement or any of that stuff. That's to the city and
So
The
who does he
planning
need
through
to
the
sit
commission.
down and talk to?
for the council.
With Matt,
Okay,
yeah, I can make sure that he gets, John's information tomorrow. I don't know if he'll have time to give him a call or not, but definitely, phone number and email, and they can set up a meeting, so that, cause like you, I don't do anything with the tax abatements or anything in the spending wise when it comes to that.
It's just a really frustrating moment, because this is the same
I understand that, that's why I'm asking him, what is the process other than giving TEC all the money to figure out if he even wants to do it or not? Is there a way to,
The process would basically be that they need to go, the council would have to approve any tax abatements in the form, we'd have to have petitions. And there is a process, we get our bond counsel involved in that as well, or our city attorney involved in that process as well, because there is, I mean, just kinda like what we did with Mason Enterprises. There's a lot that goes behind the scene, but most of it
Right.
has to go to, city council as far as that side of it. Like I said, you guys would be
We're
would be
the last-
approving the zoning and the plats and things like that, but the finance side would have to go in front of council.
And what is the money that he's referring to
That's how
that's
much it-
PEC one?
That's how much it costs to develop the plans, to have for the platting process,
Oh,
the
but he can
development
have
of the
anyone on that.
utilities.
He doesn't have to have
I-
PEC.
No, but we were told in a meeting in this building that we had to use PEC because they were your premier contractor of choice.
Well, I don't know, I mean.
And that was from your old city administrator.
You know, I've, developed some property here, and I didn't use PEC, so I wouldn't, I don't know, I mean, I can't, if there's something peculiar about this, because it's a big,
It's, well, yours was, basically just a couple lots, where we're talking about a larger development.
okay.
And
All right, yeah,
I
I can't
can't speak to that
for the
part.
city.
That part I would have to say would have to come from, I mean, higher than.
I get it, we're just,
But I understand that, but
we just keep hitting this road straight into the wall and we're not saying anything different, we're just,
So how do we find out what the gas and sewer and all that costs to get that up there?
Tom Bevan,
well, Thomas has already, worked on that.
Okay,
And we would have, for us to get the sewer, water, and gas up to that point, that has to go through PEC because that would be us. Once we get it to the location, that's more on them. And that has already been discussed on to how we could do that and a potential timeline, what our staff could do versus what we would have to have hired out. That has already been discussed.
Okay, so I think, you're talking probably to the wrong people for what you're asking. We will support, as soon as this comes to us, as far as the zoning change and the plat, approval of the plat and stuff. Other than that, we can't answer those questions that you're asking.
so I guess, let's come in and talk to the new city administrator and go from there, but, we're very serious about this. This is, Gene Bedrelli developed several large-scale developments in Wichita, and, as John Work know, he's also, one of the investors, so. We have the investor group here, we're ready to invest in the community, give you some tax base. We just want a little buy-in so that when we do put our money down, we know it's gonna be something that we're gonna be able to monopolize on and not just waste our, upfront discovery. So, anyway, that's what I had to say.
Okay, I appreciate it. Anybody else?
I think we're
Public
done.
forum? Who's that?
They're here for a case.
For the case, okay. All right. So we'll go on to public hearing.
Yeah, we can go now.
Richard Wolf, move planning commission be recessed and the board of zoning appeals be convened, and could use a second.
Second.
Second by Luke, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. I now call agenda item 6A, the public hearing for case BZA-V-2023-02, the request for variance to reduce the side yard setback as stated in zoning regulation 6.4.D.2.B in R1 zoning district. Does any member wish to abstain from voting on this agenda item?
No.
Hearing none, let the record show there were no abstentions. Ex parte communication, does any member have
No.
any ex parte? Let the record show no ex parte communications have been reported. The Secretary has reported that a notice for this publication hearing, or the public hearing was published in Ark Valley News on 9/14/2023, and notice were mailed to the applicant and 23 owners of record of real property in the notification area on 9/15/2023, all of which is at least 20 days advance notice as required. Unless there is evidence to the contrary, I declare notification requirements have been satisfied for the public hearing. As the first item of business, zoning administrator Dustin McDelton will present the zoning administrator's report.
Thank you. BZA V 2023-02, Andrea Edwards and Kevin Dixon are requesting a variance to reduce the north side yard setback from 8 feet to 3 feet on property zoned as R1. It's 0.234 acres or 10,200 square feet on the lot of land, generally located north of 61st Street or Kechi Road and east of Oliver at 601 North Creek Trail Circle. The applicants are requesting a variance to reduce the north side yard setback from 8 feet to 3 feet. The residence was built in 2001 and is platted. The applicants have lived on the property since 2019 and have plans of adding a 10 by 16 or 160 foot square storage shed or structure. The property is currently developed and used as a single family home. The applicants want to stay in compliance with Kechi zoning regulations. Approval of the variance will allow the applicants to freely use their backyard for family time. The properties to the north, south, east, and west are all developed and used as single family residential homes. Case history, the property, this is the first time the case is brought before the board. The property was platted as Lot 11, Block 1, Prairie Creek, 3rd Edition on March 12, 1998. Adjacent zoning and land use to the north, south, east, and west are all zoned as R1 and used as single-family residences. 5 criteria for granting a variance. The request for a variance must arise from a condition which is unique to the property in question, is not ordinarily found in the same zone or district, and is not created by an action or actions of the property owner or applicant. Staff analysis. The subject site was developed as a single-family residence as a corner lot. The property has a 10-foot or 20-foot shared utility easement in the backyard. The side yard setback, utility easement, and building setback create conditions and contribute to the uniqueness of the property. Granting of a variance shall not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. Staff analysis. Staff received 3 phone calls from residents who had questions within the notification area. Jennifer Williams of 571 North Creek Trail Street, Sonia Bowman of 612 North Creek Trail Circle, and Lawrence Bierman of 582 North Creek Trail Street all said they had no problems with the applicants having a reduced side yard setback for a shed. Staff also received a note from the adjacent neighbors to the north, Linda and Gary Bailey of 611 North Creek Trail Circle, saying that they had no objections. See note at the end of the report. Number 3, the strict application of these regulations will cause unnecessary hardship upon the property owner represented in the application. The applicant states that they would not be able to use the space provided in the backyard to the fullest if they placed a shed in the middle of the yard. See applicant letter at the end of the report. Staff analysis. Strict application of the regulations would require the applicant to place their shed outside of the easement, side yards, and building setback. Number 4, the granting of the variance shall not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. staff analysis. The reduction of the side yard setback will not change the supply of air or light, has no impact on the public streets, fire danger, endangerment to public safety, or reduction or diminishment of property values in the neighborhood. Number 5, granting of a variance will not be opposed to the spirit and intent of the zoning regulations. The spirit and intent of the 25-foot property line setback is to create a buffer between the manufactured home park and adjacent property / land uses. The large tree buffers to the south, and I apologize, that is the wrong information right there.
A little bit off. I don't live next to Highway 50.
Yeah, unless you guys moved. Yeah, that is the wrong information right there. Recommendation: should the Board of Zoning Appeals determine that all 5 conditions necessary to the granting of the variance can be found to exist, then it is the recommendation of the zoning administrator that the variance to reduce the north side yard setback from 8 feet to 3 feet be granted, subject to the following conditions. The storage shed or structure must comply with the specific use standards of section 10.45. Development and maintenance of the site shall be in conformance with the approved site plan. No hazardous waste or materials shall be stored in the storage shed or structure. Aerial map, a map of the stated property. Zoning map, showing that all adjacent properties are zoned as R1 single-family residences. Comprehensive plan showing that it is used for housing and where the house is located at. This is a site plan submitted by the applicants showing where they want to put their shed, where they would have to put it in conjunction with the setbacks to keep in conformance to the regulations. Site photos: subject property facing west, east, north, and south. We would like to have this is a letter from the applicants. We would like to have a 10 by 16 shed installed on the property listed above per the attached site plan placement. The shed will not be on a concrete foundation, therefore it is not a permanent structure. It is also not being placed in any easement or right of way. The need for this variance is unique to our property, as typical building setbacks do not place sheds in the middle of residences' backyards. There is a mature tree directly to the south of where we would like to place the shed that would impede in the placement footprint following normal code allowances. Therefore, we are requesting a reduced side yard setback from 8 feet to 3. This is also in keeping with the aesthetics of our neighborhood. It would line up directly with the neighbor to the north shed. The issue arises due to a combination of the building setback line on the south property of the property being approximately 18 feet to the north of the south, almost 33 feet from the city curb on Cheyenne Street. Per code, no structure can be built outside of this line and therefore makes shed placement in the middle of the yard. The shed placement issue is not ordinarily found in the same.
I got one question on the utility easement.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that only on the one behind, and this is on the side that we're talking about?
Yeah, so they thought about having the shed down here on the south end of the property. There is the building setback right here, but the shed cannot come down here because it would be behind or in front of the house, because it being a corner lot, both adjacent street frontages are considered front yards.
Where are the utility easements right now?
The one in the back right here is 10 feet from their property line to the east. It is 20 feet in total. As indicated up here, CL, 20-foot utility easement.
Okay, and it's not gonna be on the utility easement?
No, it will be placed outside of the utility easement, just 3 feet away from the north property line.
Okay, I would just suggest that a fourth one that, you know, it'll be off the utility easement
Okay,
on your, I just suggest that, but.
for additional conditions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Dustin?
I do. In your recommendation on, number 3, it says no hazardous waste, which makes sense, or materials, shall be stored in the storage shed. The owners apparently intend to store their lawnmowers and, like most of the rest of humanity, they store gasoline, they might have, herbicides, fertilizers, what are you meaning in that, or defining materials?
The intent of that is materials in excessive amounts. Other things that I can't allow to go into the stormwater system should the shed leak and get washed into the ground in exorbitant amounts.
Okay, so you're really saying standard household
Materials are allowed,
materials,
yes.
chemicals that are in small quantities is okay and properly stored?
100%, yes.
Okay.
So why don't we just change that to, no hazardous waste or materials beyond their normal, residential,
Okay,
hazardous, you know, waste, or hazardous waste.
okay.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Dustin.
Yep.
Okay. Did the applicant wanna say anything?
I can get up there, I was just gonna say thanks Dustin for all your time. We just wanna put bikes, the lawnmower, in the shed. Our third car overran with all that stuff. We wanna make the third car a place to watch football, just saying. So. Also, yeah, it's in the middle of our backyard, so it doesn't make sense.
Any questions for the applicant? And anybody here for public comments? I guess just the applicant here. Sure. Okay. All right, the Board of Zoning Appeals will now begin deliberations. Well, before that, seeing no other questions here, hereby close the public hearing and will restrict further conversation to the bench. The Board of Zoning Appeals will now begin deliberations. There will be no further public comment unless the Board of Zoning Appeals asks questions for clarification. Board of Zoning Appeals will or may only grant variance if the standards of section 1505.d of the zoning regulations and KSA 12-759E are met. Does the Dustin, you agree that the requested variance is authorized variance on in that 1505C?
I'm sorry, what page are you on, sir?
Oh, on the page 3.
Yes, sir.
Anybody disagree? Okay, does the Board of Zoning Appeals find that the request variance meets the standards as listed in section 1505D and KSA 12759E as follows? The variance requested arises from a condition that meets all the following provisions unique to the property in question, not orderly found in the same zoning district, not created by an action or actions of the property owner or the applicant. Everybody agree with that? or-
Yep.
Okay. D, granting of the variance will not adversely affect the rights of the adjacent property owners or the applicant. It looks like, they've all said that they don't have a problem with that. Agree?
Agree.
Strict application of the provisions of these regulations from which a variance is requested will constitute an unnecessary hardship on the property owner requested, in that application. Dustin just said, you know, that putting it in the middle of the yard would be,
That makes sense.
not, everybody agree?
Agree.
Agree.
Alright. F, the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. Everybody agree with that?
Agree.
Granting variance will not be opposed to the general spirit or intent of these regulations. Everybody agree?
Agree.
Okay.
I think we're ready for a motion, aren't we?
Yeah, I think, so everything that Dustin, everybody has no problem with what he had on there.
All right, are we ready for a motion?
Let me hang on just a second. Make sure. Yep.
Okay, I'd move that we approve, the structure, based on the following criteria. The storage shed or structure must comply with the specific use standards of section 10.45. Development and maintenance of the site shall be in conformance with the approved site plan, and no hazardous waste or large quantities of hazardous waste shall be stored in the storage shed.
Beyond the normal house.
Beyond a normal household amount.
And number 4, that it'll be off the utility easement.
Right, and that the structure won't be on the utility easement.
Okay, here a second. Oscar? Motion by Luke, second by Oscar to approve the variance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved unanimous.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, so order and determination of the Board of Zoning Appeals are not subject to appeal to the City Council. All such decisions are considered final, notwithstanding the right of an aggrieved party to seek a judicial review as provided by law. Any person, official, or government agency, jointly or separately, dissatisfied by any decision by the Board of Zoning Appeals may seek relief by petition to the Sedgwick County District Court within 30 days of the date of the final decision if filed with the zoning administrator. Okay. Richard Wolf moved to recess the Board of Zoning Appeals and reconvene the Planning Commission. Second?
Second.
And second by Oscar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimous. All right.
Who made, I'm sorry, who made those motions and? Motion.
Oscar.
Just take your pick, we won't fight over it.
And Mark, right?
Okay.
Second? Okay, and so the last thing we had in here, I asked to, for new business, basically whether the city can initiate a zoning change. So my question comes from when we had Bob Conger and Chris Moreland here, and we were discussing the C3 zone, or C1 zoning district. They had made a statement that the city can initiate
Yes,
a zoning change.
and the city has
Okay.
before.
Okay, and my question is that property across the street that we had voted on last time? I mean, we're total agreement, C3 it was appropriate if the, venue went in there that they had, but now, it wouldn't be appropriate, for some of the other, places to go in there. So I'm asking if you can run it by the lawyer, if we could initiate a zoning change to C3, or something other than, or not C3, to C1 for that property. Run it by the lawyer and the city staff.
I would presume that we'd have to have the, owner of that property's input in the process.
Well, yeah, there would be a public hearing,
Right.
and
One of the, when the city rezoned the property at 61st Street North and Hillside from, A1 to commercial a couple of years ago, that was done, by the city. The owner didn't have anything to do with it, they didn't speak at the public hearing. It was to make it conform to the actual use that it was, so there is precedence. The city has done and there's another property that the city did initiate the change. Like I said, this one, the owner was not involved with, but the other one, the owner was involved with, so we have precedence both ways.
alrighty. I see nothing else on the agenda. Motion
I so
to
move.
move to adjourn, and
Second.
motion by Asper, second by Luke to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
You see Teresa, she got the easiest